It is time for the BBR Scramble, an 8-mon draft tournament Wi-Fi hosted by those at the BBR D-Ray, OG Albina, and friends. Thank you to all of them for hosting such a great tournament and inviting me back to play in the BBR. I'm excited to play, and I think I drafted which might be my best ever team that I've used in draft. It's hard to say that considering I've been playing it since about 2014 on draft, but this team just came together so nicely. I got a really broken Pokemon in Okidogi as my Terra captain, but before we get into that, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I have a personal goal of 400 subscribers to hit by the end of the year, and if you subscribe today and help me hit that goal, that would be greatly appreciated. So let's get into some of the rules quickly for those who have not watched any of the other draft analysis or have only coming from my channel. Let me open up the rules here. So the main thing we had here was we got to draft 8 Pokemon, and we drafted with 8 players. We had 90 points available to us, and there is a free Terra captain that we have available to us that is pretty much high tier, but a lot of Pokemon are banned in the Terra option. Something like the Garchomp, for example, which you will see just a little bit later, is actually Terra banned, for example. So Pokemon like that, if you want to see all of those banned Pokemon, go to the BBR Discord in the description down below, and make sure to go to their doc to see the tier list that they're using for this draft. It's also Terra Preview, which adds a little bit of an interesting aspect. So if we talk about the BBR last season, we had a Terra captain with 2 types, but it wasn't Preview. This time we get access to all of the types, but it's Preview. And what that does is it opens up a lot of Pokemon that, normally would be difficult to leverage with Terra to be Terra captains, because you have the ultimate flexibility. A lot of Terra captains don't really get the full flexibility on 2 types. And when you have the full array of options, really opens up a lot of amazing Terra-type Pokemon. Terra Kingambit was a Pokemon that was very, very popular in this price list because it was priced at 12 points, and you can have that as your Terra Captain, which for Kingambit is pretty insane. So you're going to see a lot of insane Kingambit teams throughout this tour. If you're watching everyone else's channel, I promise you we are not doing that today. But let's waste no more time, and let's get right into the team. This is the team I ended up drafting, as I alluded to earlier, that Garchomp, and as I said, I think this might be my best ever draft league team. Look at that top 6, just such a beautiful combination of 6 Pokemon. If that team doesn't earn a like, I don't know what will. But let's get through a little bit of a quick discussion on what this team is going to be. I'm not going to reveal all, because you're going to see, especially the Pokemon at the end, it's going to be difficult to really explain their value without giving out a lot of information that I don't want to going into the tournament. So the first 2 Pokemon, John Jr. will have me on record, and he'll probably even comment on this video saying that I think Garchomp is such a bad Pokemon. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad Pokemon, but one of the things I dislike about it, and one of the things, I look at as Mew in ORAS, especially in the early days back in 2016, 2017, one of the main issues with that Pokemon and how people build with it is I find a lot of the team comps that you end up drafting it in, especially if you draft it first, it kind of necessitates being a rocker plus 3 attacks, or in Spiker and 3 attacks, as you're going to get with Garchomp nowadays. And that's a real concern I have out of a first overall pick. You see me spend a lot of my first overall picks. I drafted a lot of Zygarde teams back in the day. I draft, Dragapult in the BBR with Volcarona. A lot of Pokemon that have really big takeover potential in the mid to late game. Garchomp has that ability with Swords Dance and stuff like that, but a lot of mid-tier Scarfers do a really good job of checking this Pokemon, especially after some hazard damage. So that's one of my main concerns with it as a 1A option, but that's why we drafted in the second round and got Tornadus-t first, another Pokemon that you could probably argue has a similar sort of situation. A lot of the times, a lot of players end up bringing it as a bulky U-turn momentum Pokemon. U-turn, it gets knockoff again, which adds even more to the viability of Torn-T. And then Hurricane, just abusing Regenerator to put as much damage as possible to open up your other threats. And it might not make sense then at this point, if that's my main criticism of Garchomp. 1, why Torn-T is one of my favorite first round picks, and 2, why I would draft them both together. And when you look at the free Terra Captain option, it really opens up a lot of those mid-tier setup sweepers to really be taking advantage of your opponent's teams. And that's something that Torn-T and Garchomp are really going to allow to do. And we're going to get to the Rotom Wash enabling that as well in a second. And that's not even to say that these first two Pokemon can't be setup sweepers either. Nasty Plot, Torn-T, very popular option. And as I alluded to earlier, Swords Dance Garchomp, very powerful as well. But the combination of those two really, deal a lot of damage, create a lot of momentum, can get up rocks as well as some other Pokemon on my team, and really do help open up this third pick on my team. And this is the Pokemon I'm most excited about, the Okidogi free Terra Captain here. It is Terra Preview to keep in mind, so we're not going to be getting any crazy surprises going on in this tour. But this Pokemon, I was put onto it going into the season. You're going to see who I was put onto it in the draft analysis in a couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. You're going to want to be subscribed to see some epic videos coming out about SV Teal Mask Draft League in the future. But this Pokemon is just unbelievable, and what it can do as a bulk up setup sweeper under free Terra. When I alluded to, you can use these Pokemon to open up those mid-tier Terra options, this is the perfect example. Common Pokemon that want to switch into Rotom Wash and even the Tornadus-t get taken advantage of by Okidogi, and Terra can even make that even more of a possibility. This Pokemon, especially with Toxic Chain and Guard Dog, just so many great options. It has knockoff as well. Really, really solid Pokemon here. The Screamtail pick was probably the turning point of the draft. I debated so heavily taking Clefable in this spot. I really, really want to use Clefable in the new Teal Mask metagame, but the point saving on Screamtail was just so useful to enable my next two picks. I just had to go for it. The other thing that's really nice about Screamtail over Clefable, not just the price point, is going to be that speed stat. Being able to outspeed some common 110s going to be really, really important, especially in 8-mon, where rolls have to be compressed a lot more than an 11-mon draft. This is a Pokemon that can really have a lot of high utility in those situations. It's a fairy type, and definitely worth saving the points to get that additional power in the next two slots. Rotom Wash, such a perfect combination with Tornadus-t and Garchomp. You're going to see a lot of these Pokemon combined, and usually Rotom Wash picked in the third round, honestly. To get it here in round 5 is such an advantage, and that's why you want to save the points. You're going to see me talk about in the next draft analysis that I do. Staying open is such a benefit in draft, not sticking and going through super linear plans all the time, to staying open and let broken Pokemon come to you. And with Rotom Wash and Scizor coming to me in round 5 and 6, we were able to do that to such a good advantage here. Rotom Wash is going to do a great job of bringing in the Pokemon that Okidogi wants to take advantage of and just straight up U-turning on them. So will Scizor, so will Tornadus-t, and that's just going to be massive. Swords Dance, Scizor as well as another just threat. Look at just all the setup sets we have as well. Even Nasty Plot, Rotom Wash, but I doubt you're going to see me bring that. Let's talk about Scizor though for a second. I love a good Mega Scizor. We only get the regular one in this generation, but Defog knockoff and Bullet Punch, that is the key to this Pokemon on this team. Cleaning up all the damage Garchomp and Tornadus-t will be dealing across the board. And then once again, just another very solid U-turn momentum Pokemon in this build. The last two Pokemon, don't want to give too much information away on just yet. They have very specific utility in Mischievous and Lilligant, so we don't want to give the opponents just too much information just yet. But no, for low value, those are some great Pokemon to have. We ended up with an interesting pool here. OG Albina actually in my pool. We just lost to him in the BBR quarterfinals, so it's going to be really nice to get an opportunity to get our revenge against him. And we're playing a 2-mon mirror, which is insane. This is one of the things you'll see with tour games a lot of the time. These mirrors are very, very common. You're not going to see a Tornadus-t Garchomp mirror in draft every day, though. This is certainly the exception and not the norm here. He's got Manaphy too, which is a Pokemon I actually considered for my team until I realized we couldn't use it with Terra. So at that point, I'm like, all right, enough of that. He's actually got Terra, Lycanroc, Dusk, which I don't think is personally that great, but we'll see what it looks like when he builds his team. Ghost Trick Leo actually had the pick in my draft pool right before me and took the King Gambit. When I mentioned I had an interesting decision point there taken away from me, it was actually Ghost Trick Leo who took it away from me, and he happens to be in our battle pool, but he has Terra Chiyu instead of Terra King Gambit, which is interesting. Decision point there kind of makes sense. Chiyu is obviously very, very threatening, and free Terra does give you the ability to break through a lot of common Chiyu checks in 2-type Terra formats, and sometimes can be Terra banned, but oftentimes ends up being outclassed by other Terra options. Munkidori on Trian's team, very, very excited to see what that Pokemon can bring. An option I had to draft on my own team before I went the Tornadus-t Garchomp route. But overall, a really, really interesting pool. 3 Garchomps, a double mirror, A lot to look excited for in this pool. Not sure what the upload schedule is going to be, as it's, pool play for a tournament, so very, very dependent on schedules and that. But I'm super excited for this pool. Hopefully we can get our revenge against OG Albina and have 2 great games against players who haven't gotten a chance to meet in the community. So that is all for today's quick draft analysis. If you guys haven't already, make sure to join the BBR draft server to follow everything to do with Summer Scramble, not just my games, not just OG Albina, Ghost Trick, Leo, and Trans games, but everybody's games in the pool for this tour. A lot of great new Pokemon being used, not just the munkidori and the Okidogi in my teams and Trans team, but on all the other teams. And as well, if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe the video if you made this far. I would really, really appreciate it. That is all I have for you today, and as always, have a wonderful day.